Welcome to Pink Ambitions. We'll be doing the play You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed by Gabriel Okara. We'll be doing the themes, tone, imagery, and diction. So a little bit of a backstory about the poem is You Laughed and Laughed and Laughed is by renowned Nigerian poet by Gabriel Okara. It explores the clash between traditional African culture and the arrogant, dismissive attitudes of Western colonizers. So, if you don't know that we always go through the poem before we could go to any of the key elements, so let's read the poem. In your ears, my song is motor car misfiring, stopping with a choking cough, and you laughed and laughed and laughed. In your eyes, my international walk was inhumane, passing your omnibus understanding, and you laughed and laughed and laughed. You laughed at my song, you laughed at my walk. Then I danced with magic dance to the rhythm of talking drums pleading, but you shut your eyes, and you laughed and you laughed and laughed. And then I opened my mystic inside wide like the sky. Instead, you entered your car and laughed and laughed and laughed. You laughed at my dance. You laughed at my inside. You laughed and laughed and laughed. But your laughter was ice laughter, and it froze, your inside froze. Your voice froze your ears, froze your eyes, and froze your tongue. And now it's your turn to laugh. But my laughter is not ice laughter. For I know not cars, not ice blocks. Okay, this is a very long poem, and it has a very deep meaning to it. So, it deals with emotions, a lot of emotional impacts. So let's go to the key themes, such as the first theme is culture clash. The poem contrasts cold industrial Western technology such as a motor car with warm natural African traditional talking drums. The next theme is colonial arrogance. The colonizer views indigenous practices as primitive, using mocking laughter to express a superiority and dismiss native culture. Cultural resilience. So, despite the intense mockery, the speaker retains their identity and connection to their heritage without becoming bitter. So they still are true to their strong culture despite all of the discrimination and the mockery that they've been facing. To reconnect with nature is the final thing. True humanity stems from a deep spiritual bond with the earth's living warmth of the earth, which contrasts with mechanical living. So this is more or less the traditional way and the westernized, modern way with a huge contrast of connotations that are back and forth in this play. So let's go to the tone. So just like how there are many themes, there are also many tones in this play. The first is mocked and hurt. So stanza 1 to 5 contrast the feeling, the tone of such of being mocked and hurt, an emotion. This pain is brutal. The tone starts as a defensive and vulnerable, highlighting the pain of being ridiculed by an outsider. They are being teased, they are being mocked. That is the tone in stanza 1 to 5. Also remember, the tone is the poet's attitude when he or she is writing the play, and the mood is your attitude when you read the play. So always remember that tone and mood is two different things. But in this poem, we are not doing the mood now. We are doing the tone. So the next tone is different and assertive. So between lines 6 to 8, the speaker gains confidence, shifting to a strong, proud tone as they explain the power of their own heritage. So now they have been mocked, they have been teased, they have been hurt and been through the pain in stanza 1 to 5. And now, between stanza 6 to 8, the tone shifts as now they are strong. They are willing to be able to take the pain and turn their pain into power and showcase the true raw talent and creativity of their heritage and their traditions. The next stanzas 9 to 10, is compassionate and informative. The poem ends on a calm teaching note, showing patience rather than malice as the colonizer learns a lesson. So now it's very informative, as we've learned a lesson from this poem, not only just the colonizer that they are referring to, but also we as individuals. We have learned that the heritage of one's culture is so important, and it carries such values that even though we are modernizing in such a world, that we should not forget our traditions, nor should we discriminate um, upon other religions and other cultures and other traditions, because all traditions are so beautiful and carry such morals. So the last 9 to 10 stanzas show the empowerment behind the different cultures. Okay, so imagery. Let's go into imagery. There's many different type of imagery in this poem, as are we are um, we are consumed by many different types. So the first being mechanical imagery. So imagery, mechanical imagery. Quotes like motorcar misfiring, stopping with a choking cough, those are all images, and imagery is the picture that is painted in your mind when you read the play. So what you think of when you are reading this play, that is exactly what imagery is. So these specifically are giving the visual and auditory image, shows how the colonizer perceives African music as broken, harsh, and mechanic-like. So now we are noticing a very bad connotation of what the colonizer has done and how he or she has perceived it. Okay? Then we get cold imagery. So we think of an ice block. Whenever we see or we read about an ice block laughter, we naturally think of an ice block. So the tactical imagery represents the emotional coldness, lack of empathy, and mindset, rigid mindset of the colonizer. So also an important fact that when we think of imagery, it's not always what we see. So we are thinking, okay, an ice block laughter, an ice block. We may think of an actual ice block, but the deeper meaning dives much more, and it carries such depth between the words. And that is what imagery is. It does not only just paint a picture, but it also gives it depth and that meaning. So the next element of imagery is warm natural imagery. So the fire of the eye of the sky, rivers, fishing, animals, trees, all that very vibrant natural elements showing the true African culture is alive and warm and deeply connected to this planet. It is not modern and with technology, but no, it is true, it's earthly and beautiful. So this is the imagery that we are getting from these type of these type of quotes from the poem. So always when they ask you to comment on the imagery, it's always very important to quote and then explain. Okay, so tactical imagery, naked feet feeling the living warmth. Show the ground. The poem is physically reality, emphasizing direct, unfiltered contact with nature. Okay, so this imagery is straightforward. It's very straightforward. Always remember that when you are writing your exams, you are getting marks for your quoting and your explanation. So if they say comment on the imagery and if it's 3 marks, then you would get probably 1 mark here and then 2 marks for your explanation. Okay, let's go on to diction. Diction is obviously the word choices that are used in this poem. So what words are used in this poem? Repetition, the phrases, and you laughed and laughed and laughed. It's also the title of this poem, so this has to be the most famous, popular repetition of diction. So the repetition shows emphasis on the relentless mocking nature of the oppressor. So this is also straightforward. We know that the colonizer had laughed and laughed and laughed at the traditions and the culture. Okay, so the contrasts of verbs. The poet contrasts flows, stating how prejudice paralyzes human senses, that toward showing how African warmth heals and restores humanity. Possessive spiritual words like mystic, inside, and feathers evaluate the African experience from simple physical actions to deep spiritual realities. Irony, the phrase omnivorous understanding is yet ironical, as the colonizer claims to know everything, yet cannot understand a simple dance or song. So it's very ironic that the colonizer is so westernized, he should be mature as well to understand depth and the beauty of traditions. And that's all for today. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.